2026 COP Summit.
COP26,
COP27, COP28 in Dubai.
Year after year, the annual UN COP climate conferences roll on and on. And they almost always take place far away from the Pacific, where communities are among those suffering the worst effects of climate change. But that could all change, with Australia in the running to host the conference next year for the first time. A conference responsible for the Paris Agreement and iconic quotes like this.
How dare you!
Australia has bid for the main event to be held in Adelaide, but specified it would host in partnership with the Pacific.
We are the clear choice for COP21.
So what could bringing the world's gaze to this region achieve? And how do Pacific nations feel about the proposal?
Rio and its
The UN's Conference of Parties, or COP events, began in the 90s. And though they've produced historic agreements, they haven't escaped criticism.
It is our very survival that is at stake.
Attendees have called out the inadequacies of agreements that fall short of what the science demands, and the lack of accountability to ensure that countries meet emission reduction targets. Most recently, a loss and damage fund established to help nations on the front line of climate harm has been left significantly underfunded.
It really does bring into question whether or not COP is fit for purpose.
The climate crisis is the way it is today because of these systems that have been created to oppress people.
Joseph Sakulu is a long-time Tongan-Australian climate activist.
We decide what tomorrow is going to look like.
Today, he's working with locals in Fiji on climate justice efforts, but he's attended a number of past COPs.
My work of this last decade has been trying to find ways for our people to insert their voice into the COP process. A COP can be a very technical place, and people are so far removed from the realities of our people every day, but it's the only mechanism available for the Pacific to advocate for everything we need to ensure our survival.
He says COPs can be a disappointing experience.
The hardest thing about the COP process is having to celebrate incrementalism, and every year all we ever see is like small shifts and small changes. And it's disheartening and it's heartbreaking. If you look at who has been driving the ambition within those negotiations, you will see that it's the Pacific. If anybody is owed a COP in this world, it's the Pacific.
He says this is especially true given how hard it is for Pacific Islanders to even get to these high-level talks.
The biggest downfall of the COP process and for our region is how much it costs to get our people there. And the thing is, if we're not part of this, we're invisible. And if we don't have the resources to get there, we're invisible.
The elusivity of promised climate finance.
For Coral Pasisi, the tyranny of distance has other disadvantages.
Our poor negotiators have to travel 3 days to get to these negotiations. They have by far the smallest teams there to negotiate. They're exhausted by the time they get there, and they're certainly exhausted by the time they leave. And I remember, over 20 years ago being in the room for 3 days without sleep because we just didn't have enough negotiators. By the end of it, we were just so exhausted. We just said yes to what was on the table.
She says this fatigue extends to implementing policies, but new initiatives to increase access to finance for climate mitigation and adaptation are part of the solution.
The finance really underpins everything for us. We are facing now, with the projections in sea level rise, for example, the loss of countries completely, the types of resource commitments that have been made. I think those ingredients bring us closer to finding some resolution.
For Ms. Pasisi, engaging young Pacific people in this complex process is key, and something Pacific Youth Council Chair Mahoney Mori is keenly aware of.
We place great value on our ocean. We need to localize it, localize the COP concept. Having pre and post COP conferences would really help, given there's so many travel barriers when it comes to participating.
He says accessibility must extend to climate finance as well.
In terms of climate finance mechanisms, at the moment, the bureaucratic climate financing has become a red tape for Pacific Island countries. We've got the passion, we've got the manpower, but we don't have the resources.
Pacific youth like Mahoney are continuing a fight begun long ago by leaders like former Kiribati President Anote Tong.
We endorse what it is that's here in front of us.
Mr. Tong says he's seen the power in showing decision makers climate impacts firsthand, including former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon during a visit to Kiribati.
His very words were this: I've listened to you speak year after year at the General Assembly, but I must admit I never ever truly understood until now.
But he warns convincing nations, especially large fossil fuel emitters, to act is never easy.
Oh, they come to these discussions from an economic perspective, whereas we come to these discussions from an issue of survival.
Last year, the Baku COP29 CEO was recorded planning to broker new oil and gas deals at the event.
I think greenwashing is possibly too nice a word for that. What basically it is just making false promises. We really have to scrutinize what it is that we're doing. Why are we hosting the COP? Is it for symbolism, or is it to solve and address the problem? But the question is, will Australia come in with and for the Pacific, or will it come in with its own political agenda?